Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Matt Keffer and there's another video on Raid Shadow Legends. Sorry I haven't made some videos in a while. I actually have COVID. So the worst is over. On Sunday, for those of you that were on Twitch with me, had her a little bit early. I wasn't feeling great. And then that just regressed to full pain on Sunday. At the time, I tested negative for COVID. So I thought we were all good. And it was just a flu and it'd be fine. I get the flu. I used to work in retail. I used to get the flu every year. I haven't had any sickness in 3 years. I haven't had anything. A little bit of allergy in the springtime when it melts and it's what's called snow mold triggers me. But everything else, no cough, no cold, no sore throats, no flu, no anything, right? No sinus. It was just 3 years of bliss. And so I just thought, it's just hitting me harder because I'm not used to it. So I'm not used to getting that cold anymore. Then my temperature did go up to 102.5. I was taking lots of acetaminophen, probably more than I'm supposed to. I was taking every couple of hours. I got some neocitrin. I got some Vicks Dayquil, or whatever Dayquil. I don't know if that's Vicks actually, but I got Dayquil. I got the neocitrin night, which is, I love neocitrin. It's God's juice. I was using that during the day because I didn't care. We were managing it. My girlfriend got me a care pack of chicken noodle soup and stuff, which was just amazing. And that's why I love her. And you know, so I was just managing it. I was trying to rest. It was stupid because I napped that Sunday evening and then I woke up for a couple hours and I tried to go to bed. I slept till 2 in the morning. And then that's when the worst of it was. So I woke up and I couldn't get back to sleep, and it was just a mess and a nightmare. Went to sleep at 4. Then my fever started breaking, and all Monday was just sweating it out. And I woke up at 102.1, which sounds like an FM station, but it's actually was my temperature. And then by the end of the day, it was like 99, I think. 99.5, and then today it's 98.5, which is still a little bit high. I would say I'm just running hot. I wouldn't like technically it's still a fever, but it's a very light fever, and I don't feel the effects of fever other than I might have to steam clean my bed because I'm pretty sure there's about 18 pounds of sweat in my bed. It was a mess. Anyway, sorry, you guys didn't need to know any of that. But I'm going to tell you, for those of you who don't like me telling you bits about myself before doing the actual video, dude, just fast forward. Like, what's your deal? Anyway, so that's that. Now, let's talk about the new dungeon. Let's talk about artifact enhancement. I watched 2 videos. Those 2 videos were made by JGigs and by Smiley. And Smiley had some serious concerns about the system and thought this was the worst thing to happen to Raid ever. Whereas JGigs, a little less invested in Raid as a whole, but still understands that what Smiley's saying might be true. And I'm going to give you my take's a little bit different. So just snap on it. Here, you know what? Why don't I? We're talking. Let's make me bigger. Okay, so I'm going to take this. There's a couple things I want to talk about. There's a few things I want to talk about. First of all, the dungeon's a little bit too overtuned. And I know that some endgame players have tunes, and I think Murder Inc. came out with a pretty good unkillable with a Sky Touch Shaman that you have to have booked, but not all the way booked. And it just, look, that's, for the most of the player base, that's not going to work. For the endgame player base, it is. I have one that runs at about 50%. I've tuned it up to maybe 55%, but I stopped at 20. I stopped farming 25. Honestly, I haven't farmed it at all in several days. I'm just not interested in it nearly as much as I thought I would be. But I bet you that it's going to see some downward tuning. They've done it with every single thing they've put out. They've down tuned certain aspects of bosses. They did it in Faction Wars. They did it in Doom Tower. They did it in Hydra, so my guess is they're going to do it here too. Iron Twins, I think they made a patch. So hey, you know, it's definitely meant to be endgame content, and it definitely is endgame content. That's fine. So it's a little overtuned. Probably they're going to knock it down. So I'm not too worried about that. So the next thing is and this was Smiley's main point, is that you're nesting RNG on top of gear. And what's going to happen is the gear that you have, that's your best gear, is going to be rendered useless if you don't get the right Ascension. So let's take my Baron. I don't know if he has my best. He has my best nuking set. It's not necessarily my best nuking gear, but just because of the way the stats land, this is the best combo I have is on him. And you can see I've already played around and gotten him some stuff here. And so here's an example: attack percent boots. Now, for me, the only good answer here would be attack percent Ascension, right? That's what we want here. I don't need speed on my nuker. You don't. Speed on nuker isn't needed anymore. Now, it's a good miss. I do have speed boots, ascended speed boots on my speed lead, so that makes her faster. So it's good to get him a little bit faster so that there's less chance of cutting in and weird stuff going on depending on the other champion, like a Valkyrie. So having a little bit of speed's not a bad thing. It's not the worst thing in the world. But and this boot isn't the best boot in the world. It's good. It's a really good boot. It's got a triple crit rate. Got a top roll crit damage. Unfortunately, the fourth roll did land on defense, not crit damage. But still, overall, hey, it's still a decent. It's got speed on it as well. It's still a pretty good boot, and for this set, it works. But it's not as good as it could have been because of the speed. And Smiley's point is, if you don't land those, like here, I landed flat attack instead of attack percent. I did roll it up all the way. I think only just to see. I probably was available in the information, but I didn't look, so I wanted to see what the max was. And frankly, 80 attack on an attack percent is I would say a good miss too. It's not the best. Obviously, I want the attack percent, but it could have been flat defense, which is absolutely useless on this chest. Or mostly useless, right? HP would be mostly useless. Accuracy would have been just stupid, and resistance would have been stupid on this particular piece for this particular champion. As you can see, I don't run accuracy on my Baron. We're not worried about that. That's not how he rolls. So, and I got the second best one here. I think maybe even there you could argue, especially since it's already got a triple attack percent on it, I think you could argue that crit damage or attack percentage is good on this piece. So this piece, I'm really happy with that land. And that's why I rolled it all the way up. But where I disagree with Smiley, and Smiley, I guess, let me just wrap up Smiley's whole thing. Is like, look, you're going to render your best 3 years of farming, 3 years of forging, and I would argue that forging is even worse than farming because your finite pieces, especially like Fae, the Bloodthirst, or any of these other tier stuff. And now it's been ruined by a bad substat roll or a bad Ascension roll. And I agree that when you're Smiley and you're going up against Mac Chan, and Mac Chan gets all those rolls, or is able to put together pieces that have all those rolls, and you aren't, that puts you at a severe disadvantage, or at least a reasonable disadvantage. But my counter is it's probably not as bad as you think. And I know, and I think that's where I disagree with Smiley, is that it's bad, but it's not that bad. It's not critically bad. And here's my theory, is that if, for example, this, I needed attack percent, I didn't get it. But speed's not a bad roll on this, right? And, even if I got HP percent or I got defense percent, sure, on Baron it's not the greatest, but it doesn't make the piece useless. The piece is still the same piece before you rolled the Ascension. And yeah, maybe you won't have a 9k Baron like I don't know if Mac Chan does, but I'm just throwing this out. Let's say Mac Chan has a 9k Baron because he got all the perfect rolls, and Smiley said his is at like 8,500. So he's got an 8,500 Baron. Well, my Baron's only 7,500 attack at 263 crit damage, and it wins everything. It hits everything, it kills everything, right? And even if I were going higher level, if I had an Eckert and I was pushing again, I would still feel confident in using this Baron, even though the Baron doesn't have 9k attack. So I think that's a bit, sure, when min-maxing your gear, it's ugly. And I agree, it's unfortunate. I think it's a poor implementation. But I don't think that's the broken part of this system, believe it or not. Because I think in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to be as dire as maybe Smiley thinks it is. And maybe I'm wrong and he's right. I agree with Smiley. I just don't agree with the severity of it. Okay, so we'll move to the next piece here. And the next piece is what Plarium was thinking. And this is more about J-Gigs' video. And J-Gigs, of course, was like, Plarium's an idiot. They don't know what they're doing. Whatever. You can watch his video. Like, I'll link them both up there. Just watch the videos and see what you think. But I think that Plarium has a very particular... they're doing something very particular here. They're pushing for something very particular. The deal is, right now, Plarium makes money on shard pulls. It's period. That's where they make their money. And that evidenced by the fact that we used to have shard events, right? 2x shards. We used to have them every couple of months, 3 months, right? It was haphazard. And then the new CEO took over of the big boy, and suddenly there were some changes. And one of the big changes was there became this systematic shard pull system of every second week there was a 2x and it rotated through the 3 shards. And that was great. Then they added, or maybe at the same time, but I feel like it was, maybe they added the 10 times first and then they regimented into the alternating weeks, or maybe they added the 2x first and then they put in. I don't think it was at the exact same time. Could be wrong. Anyway, so now you have something happening every weekend, and their goal is to try to push for very certain. And it used to be factions, right? You used to have certain champions from factions in that 10 times, right? Now they don't do that. Now they do targeted champions, and then they started doing popular champions, like big name champions, like Kymar and Duchess. Though interestingly, I haven't seen a Sify one. Sify's no longer what she used to be, by the way. Sify's she's not the number 1 champ in the game. Plarium, in case you watch this, you don't have to gate her anymore. You can put her in the 10 times so I can get her. But then Plarium added Tuesdays, and they with CVC. Now they're doing Tuesdays without CVC. Today, we've got this get an extra champion, right? Right just after a 2x sacred, they're putting an extra legendary sacred in there. It is clear. It is painfully obvious that they're making all their money through shard pulls right now. And if you were a company CEO or COO or just someone of any voice in a company, and your revenue stream, the hugest chunk of your revenue stream, came from one avenue, what would you do? You'd change it. And what happened is, over 3 years, and Mac Chen, I will tell you, I will say right, I won't show you because and I like Mac Chen. By the way, Mac Chen, if you happen to watch this, Infinite Magic Raid, no, Eternal Evolution sent me hey, you should join our content creator program, but they called me Mac Chen, which I think is disrespectful to you, but I take it as a thank you. I wish I was you, so that was kind of nice. And yet at the same time, completely disrespectful to you, because they obviously just sent you. Obviously what they did is they just copy and pasted, and they forgot to change the name when they sent it to me. But in case you didn't get your Eternal Evolution kit, I have it if you want me to forward that on to you. So anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, so Plarium realizes that they only have a single revenue driver, and that's shard pulls. So that wasn't always the case. Energy used to be, and if you listen to any content creator, they would always say the best use of spend in the game is through energy. Now that has slowly moved away from the big spenders. The top, I'm not even talking just whales, but I'm even talking the top 20% of spenders in the game spend less and less money on energy and more on shards, because they have come to realize that it's the key champions that are going to make the difference in their teams, not better gear. Because they've spent 3 years getting better gear. They have the best gear. What they need is Acrizia. What they need is Sify. What they need is Necrit. What they need is Baron. Especially it's funny, I just listened, Warlord. Let's just keep going. Yumiko, right? All these Void legendaries especially. But Duchess, right? So this game, I used to always say, I shouldn't speak for anyone else. I used to always say, the most important thing in this game is the gear. It's not the champion. It's your attributes of that champion and the gear. But now that's not it's not quite the case. Now for the low spend, medium spend, it probably still is. It's more important that you up your gear and use the champions you got than try to keep pulling for the ace and pole champion. But for spenders, for end game players who aren't even spenders, that's not necessarily the case. Now it's like, hey, I have a good team for Nightmare Hydra, but if I have a Crizia, I have an easy Nightmare team for Hydra. And that's a swing. So what they're trying to do is swing it back the other way. They need, and I was going to talk about MacChan, and I got sidetracked. MacChan even said in the Content Creator chat, who runs dungeons anymore? Talking about the 3x speed. And the reality is that, yeah, most of the big spend, the top 20 spenders probably spend less on energy. They'll still run dungeons. They'll still spend this energy. You see, I got 1,000 energy. And I run dungeons because I have to, because I always burn out of silver. But for most people who aren't doing content, who aren't spending this on content creation, they probably have enough silver. They're probably not that worried about it. They're just using that energy during certain events, and then they don't spend a lot more. Back in the day, they used to load up 10k energy overnight in Fire Night every single night. 10k energy in Spider, 10k in Fire Night, and they're not doing that anymore. But now you've got this Ascension piece where you may not, if you do not get the roll you need on those boots, for example, then you are going to want to run dungeons again to get more boots that might satisfy the same conditions and get the right roll. So their theory, right or wrong, is this is going to get our top spending players to get back into the dungeons, which then creates two energies or two revenue sources, because people will again be spending money on gems and energy, as well as, of course, on shard pulls. And it won't take away from shard pulls, because the adage is still true. Getting an Acrizia helps you in Hydra, getting a etc, etc. But now you've got this extra thing. Hey, I want the best gear possible. I want the best chance of success in Platinum Arena. I want the best, so I am going to spend energy back in the dungeons to get that gear that didn't properly roll because I got a crappy roll on the Ascension. I'm going to get back into Fire Night and run another 10k energy so I can get more of that gear and see if I can get the right roll and can get that. And I think that's their mindset. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. I'm just telling you that's what I think their mindset is, which is more in a response to JGig's video. Now, I did say I think that this thing is broken, and here is why. That all sounds fine and well. The theory, whether it's right or wrong, to get more energy to spend in dungeons for them to make more revenue so they're not solely relying on shard pulls, which I firmly believe is dropping. Their shard pull revenue is dropping, which is why they keep adding more and more to keep that revenue growth. The reality is, and the reason why I think this is bad, is because there's a point at which this system is going to break the game, and it's not, in my opinion, from arena players, endgame, like Smiley talked about. I think it's going to ruin the game for everybody else, and here's why. For people that have finite energy, finite budgets, finite everything, every new bit of content, as said by Plarium, is going to be tailored to this new system. So when they add an Ultra Nightmare Hydra head, it's going to be tuned as if you have Ascended gear. And if they add new Doom Tower bosses or new higher levels, it's going to be tuned to higher gear. Everything they're going to add to the game that's not arena-centric is going to be tuned to Ascended gear, which means you're going to need Ascended gear to do the highest levels of whatever they add. And that's where the crux lies. That's where it's a problem. Because for me, here's one example. I was trying to run him. The Cupidus is one of my main champions I use for Hydra. I was trying to get hits. I got a flat HP, not great. Got a defense, awful. I don't know. I haven't rolled it. I had something on there. I changed some gear around on him to get him a little more attack. This triple crit rate, great. I got a defense, not great. Haven't rolled this one yet. Tried to get this. Got a flat attack. That's probably I think that's the best I can get for that. right? So we're 1 for 6 on this piece, and I'm using Bloodthirst on him because I put him in the lead and allow him to get turns when it's the Head of Torment. I need the gear on this guy to be as best as possible, and I don't have a lot of Bloodthirst, right? Who does? So now I have to either completely switch him into another gear, go back to regular lifesteal gear, which then means I don't get that extra crit rate, you know, like. So now I have to get gear that has more crit rate on. I know it's only 12, but still, right? So now you've just ruined. This is where I'm scared, because if I have to make Cupidus able to do Ultra Nightmare, I'm gonna need to be able to get higher damage stats, higher crit damage. I'm gonna need to get higher HP. I'm gonna need higher everything. All his stats are gonna have to be higher to be able to survive that. And that's where I'm thinking, geez, now this has potentially cost me millions of silver and tens of thousands of energy, and that's one champion. And when you think about how many champions you use in most people aren't pushing platinum, so they're pushing gold 5 just so they can finish their Great Hall. They don't need the extra stats to do that. They don't need the extra stats to farm 3v3 gold 1 or gold 2. You don't need it, right? You don't need the extra stats for campaign farming, right? You don't need the extra stats for any of the current dungeons. Everyone, you can do them or you can't. You don't need extra stats to be able to do them. But when it comes to the new content, then you are. And that's where, hey, even if I'm not playing Platinum Arena, so that gold 5, I can still do it. So I don't worry about any of my arena champions, and I just focus on my Hydra champions. Well, I have, you need 18 champions at minimum. And depending on the heads, I probably have 30 champions. So now I have to have 30 champions, and I have to at least get 6 of those to next level gear to finish the Ultra Nightmare head that's going to be there. And that's just one content of the game. What if they add extra to Faction Wars? Well, now I got to have 6 or 5 times every faction. Like, there's just so much new content that could potentially destroy it. And that's where, in my opinion, you're going to ruin gear, because you're not looking at a small subset of players that really need this push. You're talking about every player who wants to do any type of content they're going to put in the future that won't be able to because they just can't afford and haven't been able to get enough of the properly ascended gear. So that I hope I articulated what I think is going to be the real fear, my real fear in this. And I appreciate Smiley, and I'm not saying he's wrong. I just think it won't be as impactful as he thinks for Platinum Arena, but I think once new content comes in the game, it'll be impactful for everyone, whether it's Smiley or Mac Chan's account or my account or Chosen's account or my girlfriend's account, who is like new to the game and just playing. I think they're level 40 Elhain, right? All the way up and down the spectrum of people who play in this game. It's going to impact them when it comes to adding new content that they're going to expect you to have better gear for. And that, to me, is frustrating. From a spender perspective, that's frustrating. But from a non-spender, that's going to basically pay gate, in my opinion, a lot of I'm gonna say Ultra Nightmare because I know the Hydra Ultra Nightmare is coming. We don't know when. They obviously held it off because not enough people are hitting Nightmare yet. But they did say, they explicitly said they're going to add another level. And I think you're going to need Ascended gear to be able to beat that level. And now you've just pay gated, because there's no way a free-to-play player can gain enough oil to go and level up gear. And then when the gear doesn't land what they want, go back, farm more gear, or farm more materials for the forge, and then come back. And, it's just going to be a cycle that means that free-to-play low-spend players that are even have endgame accounts just won't be able to play because there's just too much. So in that roundabout way, Smiley and I are on the exact same page. I think our reasons are different. I think our mindset is different, but the problem still exists that there's too much RNG. Now, how would I change it? I think the easiest way to change it is up the cost, but make it automatically improve whatever your whatever your main stat is. Or Make it randomly choose a substat to ascend. And they won't. Look, they're not going to do this. They're not going to change it wildly. It's too late. It's over. But this will be my thought, is if they could have just made it so, hey, it landed on crit rate and gave me an extra 12% crit rate or whatever the highest stat is, that would have been great. If it lands on defense, too bad. But at least it's this piece. It doesn't ruin this whole piece because of a flat stat HP on a crit damage gloves. Or they could have just said, hey, if you land whatever that is, you land the sub and it's crit damage. Maybe that would have been not enough RNG for them, because again, they're trying to get people to spend more money on energy. So that's how I would have liked to have seen it, is that it would have been able to just either improve the main stat or improve one of the subs by a significant amount. But again, don't hold your breath. They're not going to change it. They're going to make, I'm sure they're going to make the boss easier. The energy amounts, by the way, is another thing. The cost of energy of that is way too high. But again, they want us to spend more on energy, so it makes sense. Another dungeon that's strictly energy. You can throw 10 million energy at it if you want. Go ahead, go nuts. What is most important to me is you should have infinite rerolls. Actually, let's stop that. This is my way to fix it. It's one simple way. Infinite rerolls. If I don't like that, I can upgrade it again. That's what I feel. Maybe you have to upgrade it. Maybe you have to pay. It costs more to upgrade it a second time. So this is a 2-star. So if I wanted to upgrade it, it would be 80 and 100, or 80 and 120 lesser oil, and then normal numbers on the stuff that I didn't upgrade. I don't know. I just think that you gotta pull back the reins a bit. And unfortunately, I think they're going to do it similar to with Chaos Ore, is that you can re-roll it once and it'll just randomly redistribute, and that's it. It's good or bad. I think that might be too much, and it's going to kill the game. So to me, if you could just re-roll it infinitely, I get HP, I get defense. Shit, I can still do 20 times 60 is that's so much oil. What was it, 1200 oil? That's a lot of resource. But at least I knew that no matter what, at some point I could get the number I want here. And I think that would make people feel a lot better. I think that's probably the right answer, is allow people to infinitely re-roll the Ascension. Only when it's at level 1. Once they go to level 2, I think maybe make a special type of thing you can scrub. That might be an interesting thing. Like make a special drop that scrubs, so I can scrub this back to clean and re-roll it. And if it doesn't roll what I want, I get that special something that I can scrub it. Put that in as a drop in Hydra, right? A drop in Hydra is scrub stones or cleansing stones. That would be another option. That would give you guys a little bit more RNG still, because you'd still have to spend energy to get, just a thought. But yeah, the way it is now, it's going to be broken. And with that, Smiley and J-Gigs agree 100%. Is we may have different perspective and angle on what we think it's broken, but at the end of the day, we think it's broken, and I hope that they look at ways to fix it. That's all I have for you today. I know it was long and rambling. I'm sorry it's 30 minutes, but I'm sick, so please be gentle. And we'll kind of be safe, and we'll see you in the next video.